Anyway, today we are going to talk about framing your day. And so this is something that I feel is very important for me and my walk. Um,
Mhm.
I want to be clear before we start that I'm going to talk about these things that are daily activities for me. That does not mean that I am always faithful. I sometimes fall asleep or forget or whatever life told me. But what I have learned is that if I don't really frame up my day, then my day starts to control me. Okay, so I
Right.
don't know if that makes sense to you, but this is my life.
Mhm.
If I really don't commit everything to the Lord right off the bat and get in the right mindset and all of that, then life just happens to me. And then eventually I'm like, oh, yeah, God. And so
Right.
that's not how I want to live. And this has been really helpful to me to start really framing my day. And so also, I want to be clear that this is not about, religion. This is the only way to get to God and nothing like that. This is just helpful stuff to help everyone grow. So hold on one second. I'm going to make Erin Michael the co-host so she can have some controls. And I'm also going to mute everybody. Okay. You can always unmute yourself if you want to ask a question. Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand or put it in the chat box. But I just want to eliminate all the background noise. So anyway, when I'm framing my day, I know that this is not something that if I don't do, God's going to be mad at me. It's nothing like that. It's just helping me grow closer to Him. And so He can interrupt my life and draw me close anytime. In fact, I have to tell you something funny that just happened this last week. Um, I have no idea how this happened, but I did have life get away with me. I mean, from me, I guess. So what happened is I have a lot of stuff going on in my life right now where I'm taking care of a lot of people and really high stress. I had my grandma go in the hospital, almost die, a bunch of craziness. And so anyway, she's fine now. She will be out of the hospital, I think, Saturday. But what has happened in the meantime is I got really overwhelmed with everything and I started neglecting intimacy with the Father. And I did not mean to. I didn't even really notice, sadly, until God got a hold of me. And this is what He does to me. He will say, hey, by the way, this is really important. And so sometimes He will redirect us. And right now, He has me, this is going to sound so silly. And it is maybe one of the silliest things He's ever done to me. But He has now um, locked me in a room where it's only about intimacy with Him, and He won't allow me to go anywhere else in my time with Him alone. So when I'm leading other people, for some reason, He lets me go and do other things for other people and with other people. But when it comes to Him and me, He's like, nope, this is it. And it does not feel bad. It feels great. But it's also really funny. He's showing me that I don't even have to worry about distractions or protection or any of that stuff that I'm always, making sure that the enemy's not coming, that I don't even have to worry about that right now. He's like, the doors are locked, nobody come in but you and me. And so anyway, it's pretty awesome, but also humbling because I realized what I was doing was just neglecting my first love. You know what I mean? And so anyway, it's awesome when God brings us back like that. And so some of these things I'm going to share with you today, I still do them, but He's having me do everything in this one place with Him at the moment. And so usually I'm in different places doing different things, but I want to share with you what I have been doing in my life that really helps keep my focus. So anyway, hi from Rio Rancho. Hi, Betty Joe. So what I do to start out is, first of all, he's had me start to live by the Hebrew calendar a little more. I really need to be doing it a lot more, but I have a lot of learning to do still. But what I do is I recognize that the day starts at sundown. So instead of sun up, which is what I kind of grew up knowing, is that the new day is sun up, now it's sundown. And so um, when the sun goes down, I recognize that the new day has started. And so when that happens for me, especially at night before I'm going to bed, I do something called commanding my morning, or commanding the morning. I was introduced by a friend. Actually, she used to live with me, and she was watching this video of Grant Mahoney, and it was called Command Your Morning, or Command the Morning, I think. And when I didn't even mean to watch it, actually. I was just sitting there while she was watching it, and I started really resonating with what he was saying. And he just started doing what he does. And it was like God just said, this is what you've been missing. And so after that, I started just listening to that video, kind of like, I'm sure some of you have seen my activations on YouTube, kind of like that. It's the same sort of thing where he just takes you through what he does. And so I started listening to that and really trying to do it with him. And it was good, but he goes really fast compared to how I am. And so I would be focused in one thing, and then he's already on to something else. And so then I would have to rewind, or then I'm kind of, I don't know, I missed stuff or whatever. So I found a written out version that someone had taken his thing and adapted it to their area and their views and stuff like that. And so it's not exactly like his, but I have used that. There are some things in it that, I kind of skip over personally, but I love the written out version because I can take my time, and if God leads me to do something else at the time, I can do that and go back to it in the written version. But it's really powerful in really commanding the day to work for you and not against you, and to break down all of the enemy's plans in your life, curses from witchcraft, all these different things that can plague us, just cutting those out and having God go to war for us. And so I love that. Some people get kind of I don't know, they don't really like the focus on the enemy in that part. And I'm one who I absolutely believe in focusing only on the good and the heavenly realms and all of that, the angels, that sort of thing. But there is a time when we have to recognize the enemy's work in our life and cut that stuff off. And so that's what that is, kind of. But I start my night by doing that. So I'm commanding the morning to come. And at that time, I'm communicating with the angels who God has assigned to me. And I make sure that they are activated for the night and then also the next day. Because for me, it's important. We've had a lot of attacks from the enemy at night while we're sleeping and in our house. And it's been like that. I've had a lot of bloodline stuff. And so we've dealt with a lot of that over the years. And so one of the most important things for me is making sure that our angels are guarding our minds, guarding our home, all of that sort of thing, that we don't have people breaking in, all of that kind of thing. And so that's been really good before we go to bed to do that. And one of the things that I have found, and of course, I'd like for you guys to have this revelation on your own, but this is what God has shown me, that our angels, if we communicate with them and they're sent to help us, it's great. But sometimes we have a tendency to think if we've done it one time, then they're always doing that. And okay, I don't know. Hold on one second. I don't even know which one it is. I'm trying to make Aaron Michael the co-host, but I think I made the wrong one the co-host. Let me see if I can try this. All right, let's see if that works. Hopefully that's the right one. You look the same. Anyway, so when I am talking to my angels, what God has shown me is if I do it one day, I can't expect that they will continue to be on mission with me and all of that every other day. And it's kind of like when Jesus was praying the Lord's Prayer and said, give us this day our daily bread. There are certain things that are daily things for us and ways that we are supposed to function daily. And I didn't know that. It wasn't something that I'd even thought about. I just thought, oh, well, I did it one time. Why do I need to do that again? And so that's something that he's shown me about the angels. And it's also when we command our morning and do all that, it's the same sort of thing. There are daily things that we're asking God for and that we are activating in our lives. And so I do that. And I also have found, I used to try to activate all of my family's angels who are in the house. So basically, like my husband's, my sons, my daughters, all of that, any angels that are assigned to my family, I would try to activate them. And I found that I can activate my own angels, and I can also activate my girls as angels. They are 9 and 7, and they're more immature. They're not really mature in the faith yet, or mature people yet. I don't know how to say that. They're still young, they're innocent, wonderful kids, but they don't have any authority yet in the spirit. My son, who's only a year older than that, he's 10. He happens to be more mature in normal life and also in the spirit. And he has to activate his own angels. He does have to take responsibility for that. And so does my husband. And so I didn't know that at first. It was something that God had to show me because I was trying to take authority over things that were not mine to take authority over. And so we have to be diligent to really carry our own I can't call them burdens, but our own responsibilities, and not try to carry other people's responsibilities, because then we will overstep our bounds and then actually do the opposite of what we're hoping to do. So anyway, those are what I do before I go to bed. And then in the morning, first thing I do is I always go to the bathroom because I have been holding it all night long. And so then I go and I put on my face cream that's in the bathroom, and I make my own face cream with very high frequency essential oils. And so this is important for me to get focused in the spirit. And so it's not only good for my skin, it is good for my skin, but it's really good for getting my brain to have an anti-inflammatory process happen, and also to be able to just focus in the spirit. And so I do that first thing, and then I go into communion. And so for me, I believe that communion is more than just a remembrance. I do believe that when we take the elements in the physical, it is a prophetic act, and there's something that's powerful about that. But it's also not necessary. And so if you have no communion elements and you're just taking it in the spirit, it is still powerful. It is something that it's most important that we do it with Jesus in the heavenly places, not as important that we do it in the earth. But I do like to do it in the earth as well, because it helps me to focus in that way. You know what I'm saying? And it really is helpful to me. And so I always take my Zeal and a protein bar. That's what I do in the morning for my communion. I don't really believe that you have to have unleavened bread and wine, but if you do, go do that. Anyway, these are things that I do in the morning. And I also know that my Zeal helps me too, because it's full of superfoods. And so these are really good, again, for getting my spirit focused. And so it's kind of a win-win situation for me in that way. I start out my day with communion. I think last week with this group, I shared my communion activation. Is that right? Do you remember? No? Okay. Well, then let me read through it, and I'll show you what I use for communion every day. Feel free, if you'd like. I have a tendency to, when I'm reading it, I can't help but engage in it myself. And so if you want to engage while I'm reading it, feel free. Don't feel pressured though. But this is what I do. I really focus my heart and my mind on Jesus. And I just say, Jesus, please take my hand and lead me to the banqueting table at the Father's house where your banner over me is love. I honor your sacrifice for me by opening up my heart and my mind to you and allowing you to show me where I really need you most. Thank you, Lord. I partake of your sacrifice for me by eating your flesh and drinking your blood so that I will not die, but I will live forever. I engage in the DNA of God, and I embrace the transforming power of your body and blood, Jesus. I engage the record in God's DNA containing the light, sound, and frequency of God's image for transfiguration. I embrace the record of the dimensions of the kingdom released in my body by the DNA of God. I engage that DNA record and apply it to my bones for health and wholeness and to remove all negative hereditary switches. I speak to my marrow and I command you to be a new source of blood that will transform the DNA of my cells so that I will be transfigured and live forever. I apply your blood, Jesus, to transform all impure genetic material and to cleanse all iniquitous genetic patterns. I call all my genetic material to resonate with the DNA of God and come into alignment with my eternal image, transforming every genetic record. I choose to bear the record of my eternal image conformed to the likeness of my Father and you, Jesus, in heaven, and to be transfigured to radiate your glory. I breathe in the breath of God into my life, transforming me into a living being joined with you in one spirit with you. I speak creative words to my DNA to release the supernatural abilities of God. I trigger the ability to see, hear, and move in the spirit realm of the kingdom. I trigger the ability to transform matter and control light and sound just like you, Jesus. I wrap my spirit around yours so I can become one with you. Thank you so much for your sacrifice, Jesus. So that's what I do for communion. Aaron Michael, you had your hand raised.
I just wanted to share with everyone how huge that is, like how huge communion is. You can, I think some of you might know about how I was, before we went to South Africa, I was on bed rest and had been in the hospital and like all this stuff. The day that I got off of bed rest, the day that I was able to stand up more than 10 minutes was because I realized, why am I not doing communion right now? I went and I even played the activation on YouTube of Christine leading through communion because I was so disoriented because I had been on bed rest for like 5 days that I could barely like even think. And what I did is I started like just standing in agreement, just as we did now, with her doing the communion over the YouTube video. And all of a sudden I actually ended up like throwing up, and I had not at any point had any stomach bug, any stomach issue or whatever. It was literally like a deliverance thing. And as I did that, as the communion is still praying, and as like in the natural I'm throwing up, but in the spirit I was standing there and I was declaring these things at the same time that I'm sitting there taking communion with Yahweh. And I literally was healed and delivered from what was oppressing me, trying to keep me from going on that trip. And then when it happened again on the airplane, as we're heading there, I was taking communion on the airplane and had zero pain, zero, like any of the stuff that I thought was getting ready to happen. So I just wanted to say, like, it's so much more than what people think, like, oh, just taking grape juice and a cracker at church. Like, first of all, like, it's so much more than that. And it literally, genuinely, when you're understanding and you're really pressing into it, and even if it doesn't make sense, but you're just stepping in faith, it has incredible things that it does, and everything she was saying about it impacting our DNA and all of that, it really does do that. So I just want to encourage everyone, like, regardless of what you've been taught in the past, like, just take a chance and like be willing to press in and go for it, and you will be blown away.
Yeah.
That's all.
I had someone who also just private messaged me and said, how do you ensure that these words that you speak during communion never become a religious act where you go on autopilot? Here's how for me. I don't just read it. I actually engage in the heavenly places with Jesus while I'm doing it. So what happens, you'll probably notice if you do use my communion activation on YouTube, it's different than what this is. And it's because it transforms over time, because he'll lead me into something different, because it's a real living act. It's not just reading words. If you're just reading words, yeah, that's not actually taking communion anyway. And so to me, I won't do that. I can't do that. It's something that if I find myself just reading the words, I go back over it again and actually engage it, because I don't want that to happen. That's not something that would be okay with me. Doing communion, just like she said, if you're just taking the cracker and the grape juice, or you're just reading words, or whatever it is, that's not actually taking communion. And I would say that would be taking communion wrongly, which will bring judgment upon you. And so I think that it's important that we don't do that. And so if you find that going through something like this does bring you into a religious act instead of engaging, don't do it. That's simple. Like, don't do it. I'm just sharing what I do, what helps me. Because for years, I was just taking communion at church, and I would always analyze my heart. I would try to really think about his sacrifice, but I did not go into depth about what it was doing in me. And I literally feel a change in my body when this is happening. If I'm not feeling that change in my body, I know that I'm not actually engaging it. And that's me personally. Not everybody experiences the Lord like that, but that's how I experience the Lord. And so that's something that's important to me. But I think that's a really good question, because what can happen is if we're not actually engaging the Father or engaging Jesus in the heavenly places while we're doing these things, it will be the same as going down to the local traditional church where you're just reading this thing with the rest of the congregation. And I never want that to happen to me. That's not something I want to engage in. And it's not anything against them. They can focus in and do this with what they're doing. But for me, it does turn into religion like that. And so I try very hard to not have that happen by really engaging. So anyway, that's what I would say about that. After I do communion, I go into offering myself as a living sacrifice. And so I know I talked a little bit about that a couple weeks ago when I talked about cleansing, but this is something that really helps me as well. So I go and I offer myself as a living sacrifice. It sounds a little brutal compared to a lot of people who just, they just don't do it like this, and it's not a big deal. It's just, I always think of the sacrifice that really happened for sin in the Old Testament, where animals had to be killed, and it wasn't a very happy-go-lucky process. This is something that was a real sacrifice. And so I always am thinking of that when I'm offering myself as a living sacrifice. And so I just ask Jesus as my high priest to lay me out before the Lord. And when I say the Lord, I mean before the Father. Okay. And so I ask him to lay me out before the Father and take that sword of the Spirit, the double-edged sword, and chop off my head and give me the mind of Christ. I ask him to chop off my arms and let me give and receive like he would. I ask him to chop off my legs and let me go where he wants me to go and do what he wants me to do. And I ask him to split me open in the middle and reveal my inner parts and anything that needs cleansing. I ask him to open up my heart and just split open my heart, reveal the 4 chambers, and pluck out anything that is impure. And then I ask him to dig that sword of the Spirit deep into my bone, separating bone and marrow, separating soul and spirit, and just create that new source of blood, his DNA that will overtake mine. And then I ask him to lay me on the coals on the altar before the Father and burn up everything in me that isn't glorifying to him, so I can focus totally in the Spirit. And at that time, I ask to stand with Jesus in him, in the center of his name. You know, I don't pray in Jesus' name without standing in Jesus's name. And so I know it sounds a little strange, but there is the name of Yod He Vav He. The Shen in the center is Jesus. So he's Yod He Shen Vav He, Yeshua. That's how his name is even spelled. So he's the Shen, that's the center, the man in God. And so I ask to stand in the center of his name. With him, and I ask to look out through the 4 faces of God that are before the throne. This is not God himself, but we can look through these 4 faces that are, it's this creature that's before the throne that is made for God's glory, and we can look out through these different perspectives. And so if we stand in the center of his name, we can look out through the Yod, which is the lion, or the ruler, the leader, and we can see what God wants to show us through that perspective. And then we can turn and look out through the eyes of the ox, which is the prophet, the hay, and then we can look through the vav, which is the eagle or the apostle. And then we can look out through the last hay, which is the man or the priest. And so when I do that, I'm really saying, God, show me what you want me to see today. How do you want me to function? And so he'll show me. I'll kind of just take a moment and focus here. Then I'll focus over here. And I mean, I actually like to turn in a circle in the spirit. That's kind of what I'm doing. But anyway, I'm looking through these different perspectives, and he'll just kind of stop me on one and say, here, look here, you know. And so he really has been doing this with me a lot. He'll focus me in different areas more than others in different seasons for me, and sometimes just a different day. But for me, he'll show me, hey, you need to function as a leader today. And he doesn't tell me this, he just shows me. So I'm looking through the eyes of the lion. All of a sudden it's becoming, well, real. You know, everything I'm seeing, my life, I'm seeing over my life from heaven into the earth as a leader or a ruler with authority, with God's authority. And then he'll show me how to take authority over my life. And so when I'm taking authority over my life, it isn't me, it's taking God's authority over my life. And so this is something that he's shown me a lot. He might say, no, you need to look through the eyes of the man today. And so I just see through the eyes of the man. All of a sudden I see these people who need ministry, and I will see people in my life who I'm supposed to cover and heal or whatever it might be, that he's showing me different perspectives of who he is and how he wants me to see my life that day. And so I do that every time. And then when I'm doing that, naturally, this is what always happens is he's showing me my mountain. Okay. So we all have these mountains in the kingdom of God, that first realm of heaven, and it's our area of authority. It's our life. And so he will show me in my life, I have a throne, which is my seat of rest. And he will show me how I can look out and see everything that's happening. And we each have 7 mountains of authority at least. Okay, so we have 7 main mountains of things that he's given us authority over. Sometimes he shows them all to you at one time. Sometimes he reveals them one by one. Sometimes we have mountains under those mountains. But anyway, he'll say, Chris, you really need to focus today. And he doesn't even say this, he just shows it to me. But he'll just have me focusing. Now I'm focused on my family, and then I'm focused in on my husband, and I'm focused in on his job. And so then I start declaring things over my husband and his job, and that it will prosper, he will have favor, he will have confidence, all of these things I'm just declaring over him for the day. And it's not always everything that God has me deal with in a day. He might have me really focus on him that day and nothing else. And then another day, he's really having me focused over on my business mountain, and then this one person who works in my business that I need to focus on. It's always something different. He might go, you have a big problem right now. The enemy's coming up on your mountain. You need to take authority. And so I will take authority, and I'll put up blockages, or, whatever. So this is what I do every day to focus on what he wants me to focus on. And I say every day, when I'm faithful, every day is what I do. So I try to do this every day. I feel like it's really good when I do. And so that has become a practice of mine. These are things that I do every day. Some people do other things that are really important to them. I try to make sure that I just allow Jesus to lead me. So if he goes, nope, today we're just going to go to the throne and worship the Father, then that's what I do. I don't focus on anything that I'm not supposed to focus on just because I think it's a good idea. I make sure that whatever I'm doing, I just focus on the Lord. But the important thing is that you're intentional. Because when we're not intentional about putting him first and seeking him, then we won't do it. And so the enemy will take over, life will distract us. So it's all about intentionality, that we're just intentionally focused on him. What you do isn't as important as that you do it. And so anyway, everybody might be a little different. You might be like, well, I don't do communion every day, but I go and I listen to worship and I read my Bible for this amount of time. And, this is how he leads me into these things. That's totally fine. Do what you're led to do. But this is just what I'm led to do in this season of my life. And it has been really fruitful. So I guess for me, I just want to share these things to make sure that people understand that we are not trying to lead you into depending on your experiences in this group as much as knowing that this is supposed to be a lifestyle. Engaging in heaven should be not something that you do once a week. It should be where you live. This should be your place that you're from is heaven, that you are a citizen of heaven. You know heaven's culture because you experience it more than you experience the culture here. In fact, I was just telling somebody the other day, and Yanhu would appreciate this because she was with me at this little group, but we had this women's group, and it's fine. I like doing that stuff to an extent, but I have a problem with some things because I just don't like the same kind of fun that most people like. I'm weird. I always say I don't like fun. Aaron Michael laughs at me, but it's true. I'm like, I don't like fun. I'm not a fun person. I have a different idea of fun than everyone else. And, most people, they're excited about playing these games, and then they're trying to act out these, popular songs on the radio when I don't know that stuff. Okay. So I don't have fun doing that because I'm like, all right, I don't know any of this pop culture stuff. This is a problem for me, except for it's not a problem. What I know is that I know heaven's culture better than they do because they know the earth's culture, and no judgment. It's where everybody's at in their walk. But it's something that I find so important to just absolutely know heaven's culture and be okay with not knowing the culture of the world. That I'm not going to feel stupid if I don't know it. I'm just going to be like, I don't know. Sorry, not my thing, not from here. You know what I mean? I think it's like when I visit South Africa, I'm okay with not knowing what these things are. I haven't heard that before. I haven't seen that before. I don't know how to say that name of that one town that I still can't say. But anyway, there are things that it's okay that I don't know it because I'm not from there. And it's the same with us. We can be visitors on the earth, but we need to have the culture of heaven inside of us. The only way to do that is to have a walk all the time with the Lord that is there. And so when we start walking there, the more you do that, you'll be able to have these experiences without someone always leading you. And it's okay to have help when you're beginning, but just make sure that you're really trying to do this on a daily, that it isn't something that you go, oh, I just need another group to get through my week. You need God to get through your week. You don't need a group to get through your week. It's great to fellowship. It's encouraging. It's awesome for us. We use our spiritual gifts together. It's important, but it's not nearly as important as being with Him. And so anyway, just want to put that out there. This is why I feel like framing your day is really important. And it's kind of a basic. It's because our basics should be just going before God all the time. Every time we can try, we can just be intentional about doing it often. So anyway, thanks, Anyano. Anyway, all right. Well, Aaron Michael, is there anything else that you'd like to add about framing your day? Anything maybe you do differently that you'd like to share?
Sure. So, for me, it's kind of interesting. Just like Christine, I went through, this time where the Lord literally wouldn't let me listen to, other things, other people, other teachings and whatnot. And I found out it was because He didn't want me to have this misunderstanding that I had to rely on other people to do, these things, to engage in the heavenly realms and to experience, Him. And so for me, when I frame my day, He takes over. And it's funny because a lot of the times I've ended up on the phone with Christine afterward, bro, the craziest thing happened today. But at one point I was driving down to California, and I'm just framing my day, framing my drive, just declaring peace over the road and all of this stuff, because it was literally the night before. I was living in Washington State. And the night before, He said, you're driving down to California tomorrow. And I was like, okay. So I woke up in the morning and drove down to California, which is like a 9-hour drive. And as I'm just sending the angels to go out and prepare the way, and the people who are to be connected to me, all of the sudden I was pulled up into this room, and I was sitting at I was actually standing watching all this stuff that's happening at this huge table. And there was this chick sitting at the table, and she's leaned back in this chair with her ankles crossed and propped up on the table. And she's talking to all of these different different beings, and saying, and they're organizing what's on this map. There was a big map, and there were what looked like chess pieces all over the map. And she's saying oh, send this over here, do that over there. And everyone, as she's speaking, is just listening very intently. Okay, I'm wow. I'm she's one tough chick. Wow, okay. All of a sudden she stands up and she turns around, and it was me. And I was well, okay, Aaron Michael, all right, I see you. It was really crazy. But the thing of it was, the Lord was showing me where I'm going. And He was showing me that was me and my spiritual fullness. And I was oh my gosh, I was almost kind of whoa, but there have been times where, as I'm, framing my day and setting things up, that all of a sudden, boom, I'm here. And I'm whoa, what's happening, in this, and I found out it was the the strategy room, and I was oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing before then. And then there have been other times where He said, okay, I want you to declare this stuff over your day. I do. And then I was in this really tough financial bind at one point, and He said, you need to start declaring these things over your day, setting your day up and framing it in that way. And I did. And in just a few moments, everything had completely shifted. So it's about making sure that the whole thing every time is fully submitted to Him. And I give Him permission to hijack everything, anything and everything I do, just like what Christine was talking about with communion. The way that you keep it from becoming a religious practice is by not having it be yours. When it is His and it's completely His, everything you do, it will not become a religious practice. It will become something living and fluid that changes and grows and builds its own character and all of these things. And that's how you keep, like she was saying, you just allow him, you're actually engaging in it. It's not just, reading it. It's actually like being it and allowing it to become what's going on with you as well. And yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Very good. All right. So do you guys have any questions? It can be about this or anything concerning engaging heaven that maybe you've come up against. But yeah, especially I think this sort of thing, it's important. Or maybe you have something to share that you do that it would be helpful to everyone else. Okay, I don't know how to say your name. Nyanwe. No, Nyan. I don't know how to say your name. Okay.
And I unmuted you, so you can go ahead and ask your question.
I hope that you will also let me know how to say your name.
Oh.
You muted yourself back. Try to unmute again.
Am I on now?
Yes.
Yes. Yay!
Okay.
Hi!
Okay, let me show my face as well.
Yay. Hello.
Hi!
Yeah, so ever since you guys left South Africa, I've been struggling with, like you mentioned, angels, and know that angels are there. But I've been struggling and pressing in, but I still haven't been able to see my angels. I don't know how to go about it.
Okay. Okay, first of all, before I answer, how do you say your name?
Oh, sorry, Nyani.
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 Yeah. Okay, hopefully I will say that correctly, but you're beautiful, and so is your name. So I'll tell you how I engage my angels, because I was kind of struggling the same way that you were. I'd heard that, people have angels sometimes, and that they might be before your throne on your mountain. But anyway, so I just would go to my mountain and I would say, Jesus, can you show me? Do I have any angels? And eventually I felt that I had two angels who were there. And so I still didn't see them or interact with them. And I had a strong desire to, but nothing, it just wasn't kind of coming to the front of what I could do. And so I kept pressing in. And one day, at my throne, same place, one of my angels came up to me and I could talk to them. And so I was like, what's your name? And he told me his name was Shemiel. And I questioned in my mind, am I really hearing this right? And I wrote it down anyway. And I'm like, okay, Shemiel. And so he showed me a little bit about what he does. Cause I was asking him, like, what do you do? And so he showed me about these beams of light and how he sends out other angels to take kind of the prayers during worship back to the throne and back. And this is one of the things that he does. And so anyway, I thought it was amazing, but I also thought I might be crazy. And so this is me when I was not very mature at the time. I still Googled everything. Okay. So I went to Google and I was like, Shemiel angel. And I don't know why I thought that every angel would be documented by Google, but for some reason I thought I should do that. And so I did. And lo and behold, it was documented. There is an angel that was written about named Shemiel who did exactly that. And I was like, what? This is amazing. And so I was very excited. And so then I started kind of by faith talking to him. I wasn't doing it out loud or anything, but what I have learned is that we don't have to talk out loud to angels or demons like the church has told us for a long time. Not sure where people came up with that idea, but that's not actually true. It's about doing it in the spirit. And so anyway, you can either engage them in the heavenly realms, like on your mountain, or in different realms and different places, or you can engage them here. So I see in the spirit better here in this realm, in the spirit realm here, than I do in the heavenly realms. I just always have. And so when I focus there, I start to see. If I'm not focusing, I'm usually not seeing, unless they're trying to get my attention for some reason. And so when I focus, I see. And so I was focusing and seeing Shemiel. And then I went and I could see him in the heavenly places, and he didn't look the same. And I thought it was weird. But then I realized, well, I don't really look the same either, so that kind of makes sense. And so anyway, I just started engaging him, and then another one introduced himself to me. And so I got to meet him, and I actually met him in the scroll room and didn't know he was my angel. I just thought he was an angel that I was interacting with. And then later on, he showed me he was the other angel who was assigned to me that I met to begin with. And so anyway, I started engaging him, and I learned that he'd actually been with me, I don't know how long, but at least since I was in college, because he was opening up my eyes to things then, and I didn't understand that that's what was happening. And so anyway, then eventually God showed me I had a whole ridiculous slew of angels. I mean, just, I don't, thousands that were on my mountain that were supposed to be for me to send out to do things, and basically kind of like an army. But I didn't know that before, you know, I just one by one. So now I have engaged different angels, and I know, like, I have 4 angels that all they do is travel in my car with me, not even in my car, like actually on each 4 corners of my car. They travel with me to keep me safe and to make me avoid accidents. And they've shown me things when I'm driving. I can name 1,000, but this is, for me, it's just kind of been a process of one by one kind of seeing and experimenting and doing some things by faith. So there are some things that I don't see that I still do. So like at night when I'm setting up angels to protect my family and all that, I don't know I see them or even, you know, have a conversation. I just say, please, would you just stand guard, protect my, you know, basically like I would talk to someone who, or leave them a message somewhere, you know, if I'm leaving somebody a text or whatever, it's kind of that same sort of thing, except for it's in the spirit. So I'm just kind of saying, would you please do this? Make sure you do this, please, you know, that sort of thing. And I know that it will happen because I'm living by faith, and God will always provide for me when I do that. So I have learned that the currency of heaven is faith. Anything you want to have has to be done by faith. So it's all about belief. If you are believing that you won't see, you won't see. If you are believing that you will see, you will see. If you are believing that you will interact with your angels, you will. And so it just depends on your amount of faith for that and timing, you know, what God wants you to do at the time. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. Aaron Michael, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I also wanted to add that once you do start seeing, or even not even just seeing, but sometimes, and I'm sure, I think you probably already do this, but you can kind of tell when they're around. Like you can feel it, even if you can't see it. You can just kind of have like a knowing. But all I wanted to say about that was just that be sure that you're using your discernment, because sometimes something can be there that might look like it's this beautiful, glorious, wonderful thing, but it's not. And then other times things can look scary, but they're actually good. I've heard a lot of people talk about how beautiful all angels are. But if you actually look at the description of some of the angels in scripture, they are not by our standards what we would consider beautiful. They'd be kind of freaky looking to most people if they saw it. And I had a situation where the Lord, so my house back in Washington where I was raised is 3 stories. My bedroom's on the top floor, and I have these 3 outward facing windows. And one day I was laying in bed looking out the window, and there was this big, huge thing that looked like a dragon outside of my window. And as soon as I saw it, and its big old face was just like in my window, and I was like, what? How dare you? Was kind of like my thought, because I'm thinking this was a demon. And so I'm like mad. I'm like, who do you think you are? And so I'm telling this thing to go. I'm rebuking it. And it just sat there just staring at me. And then as I would walk through my room, it would just like follow me with her eyes, move her head and watch me. And then I would notice her when I was out and about, just like I'd see her in the sky. And I'm like, oh, in the name of, and I'm just like, I command you to go and all this stuff. And I was so mad about it. And then one day the Lord said to me, what do you feel when you see that? And I'm like, annoyed and irritated. He's like, but what are you discerning? Are you like, do you feel, because when something is dark, something demonic and dark is around, you kind of feel this like crawly, creepy feeling, right? Like your discernment is like, whoa, bad news over there. I wasn't feeling that. What was happening was I was feeling in my spirit peace, but my brain was saying, this thing looks scary, so clearly it's a demon. And what the Lord said to me was that everything that operates in the realm of darkness is a counterfeit and is a twisted, perverted version of, what it was originally supposed to be. And he explained to me that what I was actually seeing was a cherubim angel, and that the dragons, the demonic dragons, are fallen cherubim angels. And I was like, oh. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I said some horrible things to her. And so I went and like repented in the courts for how I treated someone that the Lord had sent to me. And I wasn't like going and worshiping her or anything. I was repenting because she had been sent to me by the Lord. And I was treating her like garbage. But she still wouldn't talk to me. And so I was like, oh, I must really hurt her feelings. But anyway, then I, had this encounter and realized I was supposed to put a coal from the altar in her mouth. And so when I finally did, all of a sudden she goes, ah, and then started talking to me. And I realized part of her job was to light me up with fire, to make it so those I'm supposed to be connected to and in relationship with can see me and understand who I am in the heavenly realms, and those who are not to be connected to me will not see me. And I said to the Lord, how can that happen with fire? How is fire going to hide me? And he goes, well, a cherubim angel has been guarding the way to the tree of life since the fall with fire. So that's how. And I was like, oh, that makes sense, So anyway, my only point in that is that make sure you're not just relying on what you're seeing with your eyes and what the natural would say about it. Make sure you're always using your discernment. And yeah, that's all.
Cool, thanks. All right, anybody have any more questions? By the way, you're welcome, Betty Jo. I'm glad that we're in the same boat. Any other questions?
Anne Marie, did you have something? I felt like you had something, but I wasn't sure, so I just thought I'd ask.
No, she says. Okay. Now it is the true test. Inyani? Okay, yes. Can you elaborate on the ox, eagle, and man perspective, please? Sure. Yeah, so the ox is the prophet. So a lot of times when I'm seeing through the eyes of the prophet, basically what the Lord is showing me is either it's usually somehow connected to time when he's showing me. So either in the past or in the future. And it's always keeping the church lined up with the true vision, or my life lined up with the true vision. So when I say the true vision, like what is really supposed to be happening, this is how God uses me as prophet, is to keep people in line. And that sounds kind of disciplinary. It's not really about that, but it's just keeping people on track to the vision that he has. And so it can be looking from the past or the future to show me what's going to happen or what has happened that needs to be realigned. And so that's what I see when he is showing me through the eyes of the prophet. Through the eyes of the eagle, the apostle, generally it's about starting new ministries or starting going into a new area or a new place of authority, that sort of thing. And generally I'm flying over things and seeing a different perspective because this is what happens. He generally like takes me, I feel like I'm on the back of an eagle when this is happening, and which would be kind of funny in the natural, but in the spirit, it's not that weird. And so flying over my life and seeing things from a different perspective and seeing where I'm supposed to go or where things are supposed to start. And so that's how I see through the eyes of the apostle. The man is the priest. And so a lot of times what he's showing me through the eyes of the priest is kind of like a minister, how to minister to people. And so it could be about teaching. Generally for me, it's about healing or protection. So, and that's part of who I am in the spirit. And so it just depends on who you are, how he's going to use you. But for me, I have a healing mandate. And so I often will see where people need healing. And so I will expand my spirit over them, or Jesus will sometimes give me oils to put on them, or I will ask for angels to come and minister to them, that sort of thing. And it can be emotional healing, physical healing, whatever. That's generally how I see, but I think it probably is because of my healing mandate. But you might see through a different way when you look through the eyes of a priest, depending on your spiritual gifts, I think. That's just my guess, though. Since I'm only me, I only know my own experience. But this is how I see, is usually he's showing me people who need ministry. And it can be people who I already know, or maybe he'll show me someone I don't know at all. Sometimes he will take me to a different place that I've never been in the world and minister to someone I've never seen before. And it's just what happens in the spirit. And so sounds a little strange, but it's been interesting because I have met people who have said, "You have come to me." And I'm like, "I've never been to the Philippines. I don't know what you're talking about," and they will say, "No, you really came to me and you helped me." I'm like, well, praise God, I didn't even know about it, And so anyway, I think that as long as we're focusing in on what he's wanting us to do, God will use us. And it may seem like, for instance, Betty Jo, you have been kind of what it sounds like, wanting to just stay at home, be with the Lord, focus on that all the time, not being around other people. The Lord can use you anytime. It does not matter. The walls of your house cannot confine your spirit. And so if you are really focused on him and focused in the heavenly places, he can take you to minister to people, and sometimes they won't know it, but you can still do that. I have a friend who said to me, "I haven't heard from you in a long time." And I said, "I'm so sorry, but I have been brooding over you in the spirit." And I said, it's not as creepy as it sounds. But what this means to me is I focus on someone in the spirit who the Lord's showing me, and I just cover them with love and peace, and I feel what they feel, and I minister to them in what they need. And so sometimes I'll send provision or favor or, just strength, comfort, revelation, whatever it might be. And so that person that I was focusing on a lot, I didn't talk to him about it. I just was doing it because I knew he was struggling in his faith. And it was something that he'd been really struggling with, his relationship with God. And I knew how important it was for that to be strong. And so sometimes the Lord just leads us to do those things over people, even if they don't know. And so I would say the minister and like the priest and the lion are the two that God has me focused the most through, for me personally. And it's probably the part of my life I'm in, but he has shown me I have to start, especially the lion was hard for me because that wasn't something, I wasn't used to seeing myself as a ruler. I didn't really, a lot of people saw me as a leader. I didn't really see myself as that. And the Lord had me just focusing through the lion for a long time. And then he said, you need to see yourself as a lion. And I started in the spirit acting like that. I would go and roar over people's mountains to just shove the enemy off. And I would start taking major authority. And I started carrying my phone case. See this? This is a lion to remind me of who I am. And so this is something that I have done a lot because he's had me focus in that way. And now it's totally different. I actually do see myself that way now. I know that I'm a leader. I know that I'm a ruler. And I know that when I walk into the room, the enemy has to flee. And it's not because of me. It's because the spirit within me, the Holy Spirit, is much more powerful. And I see myself as carrying the authority of Jesus in me. And so that's something that I wouldn't have seen if I wasn't focusing through the four faces of God. So anyway, yeah, I have to say that these things are so important for us to do, just to see ourselves for who God has made us to be. Hold on 1 second, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, just 30 seconds, maybe, not 1 second, 30 seconds. Give me a short minute, okay? I'm just gonna
Go for it. You're fine.
Thank you.
Take your time.
If you have anything to add, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I was actually thinking about when you first asked that question was, for me, when I look through the different faces, I can feel it in the spirit, but also physically. When I look through the lion, I feel this like strength and this authority and this like power that comes over me. And there's actually been times where I've been in the middle of a worship service and all of a sudden started roaring, like literally like this loud roar, and just like not even caring. And like then like later, oh my gosh, did I do that? Yeah, I did. Oh wow, okay, well, I guess I'm not going there again.
Yeah.
And then when I look through the eagle, it's interesting because it's literally like my eyesight changes, and it's like it's this it's almost like I'm looking through like a bubble, but it's like magnified, and it's like these magnified bubble binoculars, I guess, is the best way I can think of how to describe it. And it's like this like pinpoint accuracy with my vision, where, and I mean like literally, like I'll be looking and like it's like I'm soaring over things, and I can like zero in on, I need to look down there, and pinpoint accuracy see things, and then with the ox, this like thing comes over me where I'm just like determined and like ready to just like take these things on. And so for me, I feel things and notice things in the natural and in the spirit that are actually shifting in my perspective on how I'm viewing things, my physical feelings about it. And again, everyone is different. So some people might experience something similar to this, others might not. And also, someone may not be experiencing anything physical or noticing anything in the spirit, but when they do it, might even have greater impact than someone who's experiencing all of the physical stuff. Just because things manifest differently or people experience stuff differently does not in any way suggest what their authority level is in things, does not at all express what their maturity level is in things. Some people don't see or feel anything, but when you see them in the spirit, are these huge, mighty, powerful people. So even if you're not seeing things or feeling, it doesn't mean it's not happening. It doesn't mean like, ooh, I got to be like Erin Michael because she's seeing and feeling all this stuff. That's just me, but that doesn't mean that I'm like greater than like everybody else. Like, no. So yeah, that's all.
Thanks. Okay, any other questions? You guys, I have to tell you that this has been the shortest group every week because you guys have so very little questions. Last week, I think it was, we ended like 40 minutes early or something like that. And I was shocked because I've always had trouble sticking to 2 hours. And so I've never had that problem in this group. If you have any more questions.
Because some people just have so many questions. Those people.
Erin Michael, she was always, okay, when she was in my group the first time, she had so many questions and she didn't want to ask the questions, but they were so good, helped everybody grow. So anyway, it's good if you have questions. And especially if you have questions that you think are going to be stupid questions, they're pretty much never stupid questions. Everybody is wondering the same thing. It happens to every time someone says, I don't know, but I have this silly question. And it's never silly. So anyway, if you have something like that, you can always privately ask or something if you're too embarrassed to ask it. Okay.
That's what I was going to say.
And Yanni, you have another one? Yay. See, she's our Erin Michael. She's asking.
Yes, I love it.
All right, go for it. Yes. Command your morning. What's the question? Who is the author? The one that I use is Grant Mahoney. Let me give you a link to that real fast if you want. Used to have it written down. I don't anymore, but I'll find it real fast. And then the one that is written out, I can't remember what the name of the lady is, but I do have it uploaded onto the Facebook page. So here it is. Making sure I'm doing it to everyone. All right, there you go. It's in the link. So Grant Mahoney. If you guys know who Ian Clayton is, he's part of that group with the Nest from New Zealand. But anyway, it's really good, I think. And I know that, oh, look what he said. Grant Mahoney even said, looks like prayers and decrees to command the morning. Want to honor and thank Dr. Daniel Olakoya for his amazing insight and powerful prayers edited from the Prayer Passport. So apparently he has adapted it to, this is kind of what everyone does and what you should do too, you know, is just adapt it to make it your own. That's what I do. I think that's why I like the written one. It's very adapted. It's too long for me, I'll admit, but I really do like it and I adapt it to make it my own. And so I think it's very healthy to do that, to use what other people have done to encourage us to go further with the Lord. So, yeah. All right. Any other questions? Now Erin Michael looks like she has a question. Is that possible? No? Okay. That's your face. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any more questions, then how about let's just engage in the heavenlies together, shall we? See what he does with us? All right. I'm going to stop my video, and then if you guys can put in the chat box anything that you see, hear, experience, feel, know, whatever it might be, it will really encourage everyone. And I want to stress the importance of this because if I'm the only one leading it and nobody else is really sharing what they're experiencing, we're not getting the fullness, okay? Because we all bring different parts. And so what you see is going to be different than what I see, but it might connect and it really encourages people. Yes, please just feel free to to say these things. And even if it seems weird, or if you're in a totally different place that isn't what I'm talking about, please go with Jesus wherever he takes you, and feel free to type that in. And Yanu says, I listen to see how all the pieces fit with my personal experiences and spiritual. I type slow. Well, that's fine. No judgment if you don't say anything, but I do know there have been a couple times where I'm the only one talking, and it also even makes me a little uncomfortable because I keep wondering, is anyone even experiencing anything? And so I do get encouraged, just like everyone else, if other people are saying something, even if it's different. So if you have the ability and it's not distracting to you, please do that. It will encourage other people, not just me, but everyone else too.
Also, I cannot tell you how many times I have gotten messages after the classes from like 3 people who experienced something similar, but were like, but I felt silly saying that. Does that seem normal? And I'm like, you have no idea. 2 other people messaged me. Everybody was experiencing that. That's awesome. So if you're experiencing something, even if you're like, this seems weird, send it in a private message then, if you're like, don't want everyone to see it. And things that are sent in private messages, we won't say the name of the person who sent it. We'll just read what they wrote if you're wanting us to. And that way you don't have to worry about feeling silly, because trust me, you won't say anything that either of us will find silly.
It's true. All right. And that's okay. And Yanu said, it's hard for me to go in and stop to type. Well, that's totally fine. If it's distracting to you, don't do it. I'm not trying to distract you from your experience with the Lord. But I have seen how encouraging it can be for interacting. Another thing is, when we interact with our gifts in the Spirit, we are all encouraged, and it really is something that we can work in the Spirit together. And so God has created us all to be different parts. And if I'm the only one who's actually doing anything in it, then you're only getting this one little part, which is not as good as it could be. So anyway, I'm glad it's always good for you. The Lord can make it good even when it's only me, but it would be helpful if other people do it too. All right, let's engage, shall we? I'm going to stop my video. Maybe. There we go. All right. Let's just focus our heart and our mind on Jesus right now. Jesus, we want to experience you and the Father through the Holy Spirit. We want to experience you fully. And we certainly want to just grow and do what you want us to do. So Jesus, lead the way. We commit our imagination to you right now. Wherever you want us to go, just show us. And we will go there by faith and experience what you want us to. Thank you, Lord. This is really interesting. It's never happened to me before, but we had an experience yesterday in our group, and he's leading us to the exact same place. And so I just trust that Jesus has something for us, and it must be important. So I see that he's leading us like through this kind of taller grass, and where we have to kind of lift up our feet to move through it. And as we're going in, it's leading us over to this wooded area, and under this big tree, I see a big branch that goes across. But under this tree is this treasure chest that has been uncovered. It was buried, and it's really a quite large treasure chest. And inside here, he's wanting us all to take out different things. So there are different things in here. I think part of them are mandates, things that we're supposed to do. Part of it is for our identity, but just whatever you see or experience, please share it, as well as just take it for yourself, whatever you find in this treasure chest. I see a couple books being given out, 3 books actually. I think 2 of them are books of destiny, and another one is some sort of book for learning that someone needs. Thank you, Lord. And Yanu said immediately saw dancing, singing hallelujah, praise, joy, victory. Thank you, Lord. And I also just saw this, I don't know what you call it. It's like a shorter kind of sword that has the 2 things on the side. I don't know what those are called, but maybe it's like a dagger or something, but it's definitely a weapon. Aaron Michael said, one of my angels pulled out a giant rod of light. He pierced my chest with it and is now pressing it into me, and it just keeps going. It's so tall I can't see the top, and he's just pressing me into it. No, keeps pressing it into me. Wow. That's cool. Thank you. This is interesting. I just saw someone go into the box and pull out their hands that were in handcuffs. And I thought, well, that's weird to be put into handcuffs. But then Jesus came over to unlock the handcuffs. So I think maybe whoever this is has been bound and didn't know it, perhaps. But he's unlocking the chains, unlocking the handcuffs so that they come off. They were big cuffs, like not little ones like we see today. Aaron Michael said, I received that. And I just saw another person who pulled out this kind of large umbrella, and I could see that it was like to protect them from the depression or something, the rain that was falling, but it seemed like not a good rain, because underneath the umbrella they were so full of joy and started kind of dancing with the umbrella, like everything that was coming down on them didn't affect them in that way at all. It's very cool. And then Inyanu said, "A world is in my hands, says the Lord. Season of change. My will is done in the earth. Be ready. Love, grace, mercy. Walk in my light of the grave. Live by love. I cover with love and peace." Thank you. Erin Michael said that she got a jar of oil. She said, I feel like it's the oil of gladness. And I just got a word about all these things that we're receiving, that they are to lead us into other things that we're supposed to do or places we're supposed to go. And so he's wanting to lead us into new places. Erin Michael said that she's to wear that oil of gladness around her neck. He also said, I'm receiving that 3 books. Erin Michael said, there's so much in this light rod, he is still pressing it into my chest. And I also just saw this new garment for someone. It was a long dress, kind of, I don't know how to say, like an old, beautiful dress, kind of one that, I think of in like the Victorian age, that sort of thing. That kind of dress is what I saw. And Yanni said, I see a yellow pencil with a pink eraser. Next to it is a gold token. When we started, I saw the sun at a distance. I'm not sure if it was a sunset or sunrise. And if you receive something and you're not sure what it's for, please just ask Jesus, hey, what do I do with this? Can you reveal to me what I'm supposed to do, or where I'm supposed to go, how it's supposed to work, that sort of thing. Yosa said, I also just received a stethoscope. And Erin Michael said, I feel this cool wind blowing. Thank you. And Yanu said, armies on foot, armies at the door, armies on high, undefeatable, undefeatable. Thank you. I just saw this being laid out over my mountain, but I get the feeling it's not only for me, that it's maybe for other people too. So I don't know, maybe it wasn't exactly my mountain, but it felt like it. But it was this huge, huge, kind of like a flag, except for it was much longer, like it made a really wide path. And it was this huge piece of cloth, and it was this rainbow colored flag. And it was all about, like, there were separate, almost lanes, that were the different colors, where we could slide down these lanes, and the color would envelop us, and the colors are relating to the seven spirits of God. And so I don't know if you know what all that is, but I can share a little about it. And maybe if you feel like you're going down a certain color and you're being covered in that color, that might resonate with you. The red is the spirit of the Lord, or prophet. The orange is the spirit of wisdom, or servant. The yellow is the spirit of understanding, or teacher. The green is the spirit of counsel, or exhorter. The blue is the spirit of might, or the giver. The indigo is the spirit of knowledge, the ruler. And violet is the spirit of the fear of the Lord, or mercy. And then Enyanwu said, be sober, season of change, rest in Jesus. Aaron Michael said, I see purple, indigo, and green always. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Lord. And then Aaron Michael said, wow, 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 wow. The three colors are spiraling and now wrapping around the light rod that is still being pressed into my chest. But, and Yanmu said, healing music. now I just feel this rush of living water coming and just rushing over me, kind of like standing under a waterfall, except for it's moving me too. And I just heard from the Lord like fluid motion. Thank you, Lord. And I see Jesus just gave me these scarves to give to people, and each of the scarves is a different color, but they're very kind of see-through. But he's showing me, he's giving us a different lens to look through. And I see some people are so struggling with not being able to see or experience. And he's saying, just by faith, put this over your eyes and then ask me, and I'll do the same for you. Aaron Michael said, wow, suddenly I'm underwater. And Yanu said, song, you are so beautiful to me. I see long silk fabric as well. Aaron Michael said, the light rod and colors are still being pressed into me, but I'm underwater and the floor of this river is covered in gems. That's what I've seen in the river of life too. Wow, he tied this long scarf, white scarf around my eyes. Thank you, Lord. That's what Aaron Michael said, by the way. Aaron Michael said, I feel such shalom and such joy. I just saw Jesus' blood. I don't know where it came from, but it just started covering us, like totally covering our whole bodies. But instead of staining us or staying on us, it just came off like oil would come off of water. Just, but when it came off and is down pulled by our feet, it's soaking into the ground around us, and it's just, we're so brilliant, like radiating with sparkling light. Thank you, Lord. And I just hear the Father beckoning to us, just come and experience my heart, my love for you. And you'll see the love I have for everyone else. He's just inviting us in. Thank you. Ilsa said, I see I am in yellow canola fields with him. Mhm. Aaron Michael said, wow, I can hear wind. And rushing water. And Yano said, a phone call of hope, an answered prayer for someone or someone's. Praise God. Father, thank you for drawing us into your heart and showing us more of all of your creation and what you want us to experience. Jesus, thank you for leading the way. We love you. We rely on you as our lover, our teacher, our rabbi. Holy Spirit, thank you for guiding us into all the truth and for comforting us here. Father, we honor you, we love you, we worship you, and we dedicate all that we have to you and your purpose for us. Thank you, Yahweh. And thank you, Jesus, for always being so gracious to us, for uniting us in the Spirit. We love you. We want to grow more and more. So please just invite us in, even if we're not thinking about it, get our attention, please. We do want to be true to our first love. Thank you, Lord. Amen. I saw, and Yanni said, I'm in the forest. We started on the outskirts. where I could see the mountains with snow on top. Now we're somewhere inside. The soil is fertile. I hear the water flowing. There's no trail to follow, but the peace is amazing. And then Enyanu said the fast moving tiny dots of light swirling fast, fast, fast. Cool. Oh, you guys, I love you. I hope that you have an awesome week. And if you have any more questions, let me know. My husband will be posting the recording tonight, as well as probably documents and things like that that will be helpful, like the command morning and stuff like that. So anyway, I hope that it's a blessing. If there's ever anything that we forget, please let me know, because sometimes I say I'll post something and I forget. So anyway, yeah, let me know if I missed something, but I'd be happy to do any of that, of course. So, all right. I will talk to you guys later.
Love you guys.
Love you too. I'm unmuting everybody. Maybe. Did that work? I think I muted everyone somehow. Unmute. There. All right.
Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thanks.
Bye, guys. Love you all. See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Yes.